So let's do this. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about sort of chain of custody questions. And Rod, can you just kind of talk a little bit about chain of custody for hemp products and what purpose it serves and sort of some advice you might have?
Yeah, sure. So, chain of custody refers to trying to trace the ingredients, to kind of use that term broadly, of from a product from its inception, if that can be done, to the final form product. So you kind of know where it's been on all the various nodes in the supply chain. In the regulated, marijuana cannabis markets, as Neil was referring to, it's intrastate, and there are very specific rules, and typically that has to do with seed to sale tracking and literally sometimes often tagging specific plants and taking that all the way down to through processing, manufacturing, and being able to check that. But the hemp industry doesn't have that, and so what we've been encouraging our clients to do for several years now is to start to compile a set of documents that effectively does a similar thing. And so if you are, let's say you're the end retailer and you're selling to consumers and you have a storefront of some sort, and you're buying products, what we encourage clients to do is say, okay, well the document that we think is the most important document is a certificate of analysis. We refer to it as a COA in the industry, which is a laboratory report that at a bare minimum shows the potency, which will show whether or not this is a legal hemp product. Is it more or less than 0.3% delta 9 THC, which is the metric. But very often, and more states are beginning to require COAs that have that do detect for contaminants. What we talked about earlier, the heavy metals, the mildew, the mold, the mycotoxin, and so on and so forth. And also, we're starting to see that those COAs now, some states are beginning to look at that they're only good for a certain amount of time. They have an expiration date. So is it 6 months or 1 year? But in any event, that COA is the most important, and it should be of the very product that you're selling. If you're selling, for example, smokable flower, which is very big in the hemp industry right now, and you're selling those buds, you want to be able to say that this is of that batch, So that's number one. And then, so if you purchased it from a wholesaler, well, does that wholesaler, first of all, is that wholesaler required to have a permit in its state? Some states require them to, and some states don't. But if it is, we'll maybe get a copy of that permit. Okay, so we purchased it from a licensed, permitted group. Did that group have any certificates of analysis, any COAs that they either had prepared or that they were given from the group they bought it for? Okay, if so, we want a copy of that. And then so on and so down, ideally all the way down to the farmer. Do we have a copy of the grower's permit for whatever state the product was grown in? And do we have a copy of the required, it's mandatory for hemp growers, pre-harvest report, which is, it's sort of a COA, but it's a federally mandated COA. In a perfect world, you have that documentation, which amounts to effectively from seed to sale. But we're not in a perfect world, and it's very difficult to get that for lots of reasons. One reason is sometimes that just doesn't exist because maybe the product wasn't grown by a licensed hemp farmer. Sometimes that could theoretically exist, but different wholesalers and distributors in the supply chain don't want their customers circumventing them and knowing, oh, I see now you got it from this guy. Well, I'm going to circumvent you and go to that guy. And so we're trying to, work on solutions to that, simple as redacting, information and giving, having agreements as to when that information might be available if there's a lawsuit or some sort of investigatory action, or having a lockbox where a lawyer effectively keeps that information in escrow and can confirm, it's not giving it to the customer, but it can say this information does exist. So on and so forth. So that's the chain of custody. And the use of that chain of custody is primarily to be able to demonstrate in the, if there's a criminal action where law enforcement alleges that the products are not hemp, or a regulatory action where the products have to comply with some standard and there's an allegation that they don't, where whoever's sort of holding the hot potato in that instance can say, oh, no, at a minimum I reasonably believed that I was getting lawful hemp products because here's the documentation to show it. Anyway,
or a civil action, if there's a civil action where somebody's saying your product's hot or it's mislabeled or whatever, I think that's probably important too.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. So at a minimum, it's just documentation that will help in a myriad of of situations, to put up a good defense.
You've been watching a sneak peek of the Insuring Cannabis Summit 2025. Click on the link in the description to watch the panels on demand. This summit includes cannabis and beverages, risk management, employment, compliance, claims, legalization, and more. Don't get left behind in the cannabis beverage industry. Replay the event panels with top experts in cannabis. Hosted by Claims Journal's Don Jergler and Insurance Journal's Andrea Wells. To watch the replay and to view the entire list of speakers and sessions, visit insuringcannabissummit.com.